So now we are going to go to Rochelle Deem from the Bahamas. And Rochelle she's the country contact for the Bahamas. And she's run a series of Women's Declaration International master classes teaching, or well, she can explain to you. So Rochelle, thank you so much for being here, and over to you.
So I just want to talk about the WDI Bahamas Master Classes. And of course, this had a lot to do with the demographics here relative to our country. We don't have that much matters pertaining to transgenderism, although it's a new issue for the Bahamas or for my side of the world, especially in the Caribbean. Our culture is predominantly Christian, so we have Christian values. We're becoming awakened to certain ideas and certain ideologies. And so our master classes really are simply just a matter of awakening women to the issue that we have. We have a 4-point agenda, really, which is 1, advocacy. And point 1, advocacy, we just speak about what is advocacy, and that encompasses the types of advocacy according to our demographics here in the Bahamas. And we make a comparison to the types of advocacy, and that leads into activism and public support. So right now, WDI is a new organization here. We're really trying to gain public support. It's kind of what Jo said. She just started, and she continued to work to find people who are like-minded. And that's where we're at. We want to make women aware. And if they want to join the organization, they can. And that's, a part of being able to inform them as well. I think people are very, very interested in information. And when they are informed, then they make better decisions. And of course, they want to be a part of organizations that are informed as well. And so having that opportunity to have that global connect, kind of what Jo was saying, and being able to speak to that and having that information really makes the organization here and our chapter very, very attractive to individuals, and they want to become a part of it, to join the movement, to join the sisterhood. We do have a lot of feminists here, but I think it's just an opportunity for them to, again, become awakened to what's going on in other parts of the world and to join that movement. And so as we speak to advocacy, we ask women to become an advocate and take a stand for sex-based rights, particularly, and rights that are preserved for women who are specifically born female. Our second point is women's rights in the Bahamas. So we couldn't kind of not, speak to advocacy without addressing women's rights here. And so we speak to the suffrage movement here and, women who have specifically impacted societal changes in the country and the progression of women in leadership. And that's very important so that women can know where they came from, and they can recognize that they can also do some of the same things that women of the old age would have already done to advance women's rights. We also reference non-governmental organizations in the country and any initiatives that specifically address gender equality or women's issues. So one of the things that we found here is that we didn't really have any organizations that specifically addressed women's rights only. We had organizations that kind of conflated other issues. And that kind of was challenging, because when we talked about specific recommendations that would have been made by organizations like, or the committee, that's the CEDAW committee, we found that these other organizations, which were women's organizations, didn't meet those targets. And so WDI had the opportunity to be able to be that organization that really speaks for women's rights specifically only. So we are really on the ground and really trying our best to try to make sure that we have that public support, and particularly from other sisters. Again, we also discuss language and terminologies in this masterclass, and that's speaking to point 3, which is gender. And we define gender and we dissect the term and really highlight how volatile the word is for women's rights. And that is where the discussion begins for women, and, having women become familiar with the socialization of the word gender and really how it impacts policies, and whether or not it is, I will say, whether or not it is relevant to what's going on in terms of policies, and if, the word, we need to have the word a part of certain policies for women. And so these are questions that are asked. The master classes are directed towards women who are already really involved in the community or at the policy level in their industries. So we've kind of segmented it to make sure that these are some of the top women in the country, and they are the women who are sitting at the table and making changes within their institutions. And so we're not just talking about having women on the ground, not that we're saying that we don't want to offer the master classes to women, but we want to make sure that they are familiar with the word gender, and they're able to make those decisions properly. So we're talking gender justice, and again, how that the term really affects policies. And then finally, we introduce the participants to Women's Declaration International and what the organization represents and its declaration. And in that sense, we facilitate conversation and really have these ladies become masters in terms of how they would make those changes in their industries and fuel activism activities. And that's really what we want to do. We want to be able to be on the ground and say that we are giving protest for certain things that happen in the community relative to the term. And although we are new to this, and we haven't really had those discussions relative to gender, we are making women more awakened. And so they are now having these conversations. We've seen recently where people have really been fueling, wanting to pass a bill here in the country for gender-based violence. But then you have women who take the master classes and they say, well, are we really advocating for women? Or are we advocating for a form of equality? What really are we advocating for? And that really, highlights the fact that WDI really advocates for women's sex-based rights. And these are questions and concerns that women are having. Am I really advocating for women when I decide that I'm advocating for gender-based violence? Do I really want equality, or am I really advocating for women? And these are things that cause women to kind of have that thought process. And then there are women who are saying, I'm just advocating for equality. I just want us to be equal. And then there are the women who say, okay, we want to join the organization because I really want to advocate for women. And this, helps to segment things and set things on the right track, and also make women kind of consider how are these policies really, impacting them as it relates to patriarchal societies, and whether or not they think that men have an advantage or whether or not they want to have those changes. And so this is kind of what the master classes does. And of course, we again have limited activist activity here in the country. So other than for political purposes, we really don't advocate. And so we're really fueling the democratic process from a civil perspective. And that's something that we also want to continue to encourage. And then we asked women to sign the declaration, and we asked them to join the movement by becoming involved. And so that's the way that we kind of begin to facilitate being able to add to our membership and continue to have the organization to grow. And while doing that, we're also able to give people the information so that they can make those changes if they ever become, or if they're ever at the table. And most of these women are at the table in terms of their at the policy level, so they're able to make those changes. And then it goes into engagement, and that's really what advocacy is about, and activism. And so then we begin engagement. And so we address challenging recommendations. Particularly, we've already addressed the CEDAW committee. And of course, we are addressing the Attorney General and the Law Reform and Revision Commission. And we offer inputs that will direct women's rights in the country. And of course, we continue to have speaking engagements, and we give presentations that we expect to increase as we adjust. COVID has kind of set us a bit back, but we continue to build capacity. And that's really what the master classes are about. It's about building capacity, having women join the movement, and really having those discussions to make sure that we really determine where the term gender, where it's placed, whether or not it is something social, and how we kind of integrate it into policies that do impact women. And that's really our number one goal, to make sure that women are informed, that they sign the declaration, and that they join the organization. And so this is some of the things that we do in terms of engagement. And of course, we've already addressed the Attorney General's office and the CEDAW committee relative to some of the recommendations that would have been made relative to the inclusion of transgenderism. And, that includes the term gender. And so that's some of the things that we do. And that's really the ultimate goal, to make sure that women are able to engage and have those conversations and not just sit back and allow certain things to happen that impacts women and make changes that really, really discriminate against women. And so that's our goal, our number one goal, to make sure that women are informed, that they join the organization. But ultimately, even if they didn't join the organization, we want them to be able to engage. At the end of the day, our number one goal is, of course, to have them join the membership so that they can have that support. But we also want them to be able to engage and be able to have those conversations and say, I don't necessarily agree with that. And that's something that's very important. I also want to say to women, one of the advantages of the master classes is the fact that when you join the organization, you sit under an umbrella where you have a level of support, so that when you do decide that you want to engage, you have sisters who have your back, they support you. And that's a part of building public support. So we're not facilitating, saying to women that they should just come and take the information and then do their own thing. Of course not. We're saying sit under the umbrella, you're supported when you do decide to make those challenges. And of course, we want you to engage, and we want to give you those opportunities to do that as well. Thank you so much.